Hello YouTube, Quiet Man 28 here. Tonight we're going to be tying some flies for a sabiki rig. These are some that I've tied so far. So I will show you the parts that I'm using, and then we'll get to the fly. This could also be used as a regular fly instead of just a sabiki rig. So let's get this one out of here. Alright, so items you'll need. Gonna need some scissors. These are from, I think, Joann's or somewhere. You get them in a 3-pack. They're sewing scissors, very small, but good for tight spaces. You may need a whip finisher, or you might not. Depends on how you tie. You're going to need some tying thread. This is Unithread 8/0, and it's in the fire orange. Something that'll give a little pop on the front. In this case, I think it will kind of be like a salmon egg or something that'll draw some color. You may or may not want to use a black marker. This is a Milwaukee brand, and it's a fine point. Inksol is the type, and these are good for writing on things even when they're wet. They don't run, they don't bleed through if you're using paper. Not that you would use paper for a fly. And you'll want to finish it off also with some just some cheap clear nail polish. And then you'll need some material like this, and I'll show you where I got that in a minute. And you'll need a hook, and these are eagle claws. Now they use the same packaging for many types of hooks. This hook is, if I can get one out, this is their straight shank. It's not curved. It's not curved. It's not curved this way. There's no barbs on the top for bait holding. These are good for some kinds of flies, and in this case for our sabiki. We'll talk about what a sabiki is in a minute if you don't know. And then you'll need some flash material. I'll talk about that in a minute too. So, for starters, where did I get my material, my shiny material? This is the stuff. So my wife shops online some, and she shops at a particular clothing site, and one of the items that she ordered came in this packaging. This is kind of a plastic, and it's kind of like a Ziploc bag. I just have already cut it apart so you can't see that, but it's very durable, pretty dense material. It's just like really heavy. It's almost like a freezer bag kind of material, except that it's this shimmery, iridescent, silvery stuff. And if I showed you this, you would be able to see where it came from. But you see there's some warnings on the other side and whatnot, so we're not using that part. And then what I did was I just took my scissors and I just started to cut a strip. And I may go ahead and cut this one because I found that strip that I cut earlier that I showed you is a little narrow. So I'll just continue the strip that I was cutting. And you just want to maintain your width all the way down. And you can see where I started another line there, so I'm just going to cut it off there. And there's my piece. It doesn't matter the length, as long as it's long enough to cut a piece out. And what we're going to be cutting out is a piece kind of like that. I'll show you here. So I'm going to go to the bottom, the very end. This is how you can get multiple of these out of one strip. So you're going to go to the bottom, just start at the very bottom and cut a V, a little bit more than 45 degrees to the middle, both sides. Well, you've got to cut a V, so you got to do it from both sides. and that piece is trash, unless you want to tie a super small one later. You cut that, and then you just come down, you hold it right there, and you're going to cut here and there just like you did before, and it's going to leave you the next notch and keep going down. But before I do that, I want to do something that I noticed that I could do earlier, and I'm going to try that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to have to do it down here, so let me see if I can turn it so you can see this. Yeah, there we go. All I'm going to do is take my scissors or another sharp pointed item. I could use my bodkin, but I don't know what I did with it. I'm going to hold it right here. I'm just going to take the point, and I'm just going to make some marks on it. Just like that. Just a bunch of little marks, just scratching it, making dents in that material. It's not coming through. As you get to the end of this, it starts to curl up when you do this, so that's why it keeps getting under my scissors. Go all the way to the end. And you can either leave it like that, or you can come back and do it again across ways. I'm going to do that here. So I'm just going to cross all those lines I just made on both sides. This is not as easy to hold as it looks, unless it looks hard to hold, and then that's exactly how hard it is to hold. Alright, so I've made the marks crossing, and what that's going to give me is kind of a fish scale look. So I'm going to take that now, and I'm going to cut, like I said, at an angle. Again, the same thing I did before. Alright, and then all I want to do on this thing is I've got these edges here that are a little bit sharp. This is not necessary, but just kind of take that little edge off there, round it just a touch. Doesn't really matter, but like I said, it's just a little detail. Alright, and then the last thing I'm going to do with this piece before I use it later is fold it in half, like an airplane. I'm just going to crease it with my nail, or whatever you want to use to crease it. It's not going to be perfect, but, you know, if the fish sees it from one side, they'll be good. If they see it from the other side, they'll be good, as long as they're not trying to compare two sides. I'm sure they won't be. They'll be eating it, we hope. All right, so now to the fly. Let me get this back in place. If you guys watch my videos, you notice that I switched to this blue background. I love a green background. It's very soothing, but this blue really pops, and I had it on my surface here, and I liked it, so I just put it up instead of the green one. But anyway, and I actually made another of this video, but I realized instead of calling it a sabiki the whole time, I was calling it a snell, and this is not what a snell is. A snell is when you tie your fishing line to the shaft of the hook and then run it through the eye. This that I'm actually tying is a sabiki, which is a leader that has multiple little shiny flies, or whatever you want to put on there. You can put, you'll see them with as many as 7 or 8 hooks, but some places don't allow that many, so you may have to go down to, let's say, 3 or 4 hooks, or 2. You have to check your local rules and regulations. Pretty sure around here we're allowed to have 3. I'm in the Bay Area. I'll be fishing. I'll be using this on the Carquinez Strait, right under the Carquinez Bridge. Alright, so I've got my thread started here on the shaft. I went all the way down to the bend of the hook, and that's where I'll tie my next part. Continuing that description of the sabiki, so you use it, you have a leader with several hooks tied to it, and they act as like a school of minnows, or whatever, however you want to make it look. or you can just put bait on all of them, and then it just allows you to catch several fish at one time. And usually they're really small, so you can use them to catch minnows and stuff. So I'm going to take my my first step, now that I've, or I guess, put the hook in, that's one step. Put the thread on there is 2 steps. Cut the thing out, that's 3 steps. So step 4. I'm going to get some of my flash. Pro tip from an amateur. If you ever get flash, it usually looks a little more like that. It's like straight and long. I made the mistake of brushing mine because it was getting kind of ratty, and it all twisted together and got more ratty. So now I just use it kind of a piece at a time instead of in chunks. So don't brush your flash. It makes a mess. I'm just going to find an end that looks easy to work with. So I got this here. And all I'm going to do is cut off enough to tie it on and have about the hook length left. So that's the hook length, and then there. So that's about where I want it, right there where my thumb is. You can cut off a bigger piece and then tie it on and then cut off like I did this one earlier. This is what I cut off of the fly, so I could easily have used that for this fly. But that's not what I'm doing. I wanted to show you the steps. So now I've got this clump of flash, and I'm just going to hold it so I've got it about where I want it, right there, coming off the tail. And I'll check here to make sure. This is a little long. It'd be easier to tie it in where I want it and then cut it off the other end. So this is where I want to tie it in. We'll start by doing the pinch method of the pinching the material and the string. And all you do is go around and then pop it down. And then as I go, sometimes when you're tying this stuff on, when you try to pull it around, some of the pieces that you're tying on will come down and try to get out of the way like these. So you're just going to bring it up and hold it tight and just keep doing that down there. And this can be loose wraps for now, and then you can go back and tighten it up. Loose wrap. See? I'm just going to go all the way down to just about where the eye is. I'm just going to come back and tie this in better. Just want to cover that. You can tie it in loose like this and then just leave that flashing. I have not really tested these too much to see what works best. If it's best to have an orange body with the tail sticking out, and then have your covering, or a couple of different versions that I tied. I tied this one. This is the way I'm tying the one that we're working on here. I've got the orange body underneath the covering, and then with the tail sticking out. I've got this one where I tied in. I did 2 things on this one that are different. See the hook? I've got the wings on upside down. You don't really wings are more like representative of the body. But then you see that I made this shorter, the flash, and I covered this with a smaller strip. I don't know what I did with that. The smaller strip of this flashing material, and wrapped it around the body to make the whole body shimmer. So I'm going to put all these together tomorrow and try them out. And then here's one where I just tied in the flash and the body all to the same spot, and there's nothing else on the hook. So, and then this is the one that I tied where I realized that I was calling it the wrong thing. I thought that was a pretty good looking one. So that is with the body wrapped orange, with the scales made into the plastic, the tail, and then with the marker, that's the last step I drew in, or one of the last steps I drew in eyes for the thing. So we continue to cover this up. Love that sound. One thing I didn't do is show you, whenever you put a hook in the vise, you can tell it's tight by flicking it. And when you do that, when it doesn't have anything on it, it just kind of rings a little bit. Alright, so I've got that in. We're actually nearly done with the fly. There's not much left to do. I'm going to leave that little bit of flashing through the orange and bring this down to my next tie-in point, which is just here, behind the eye. I'm going to take my piece that I cut out earlier and prepared, made the scales. I'm just going to lay it over the top of the hook here. I'll hold it down where I want it. And I'm just, see, I've got it, the thread kind of behind the point. I just want to make sure that point's not covering up my hook eye. I'm just going to lay it down, and I'm just going to turn this over and just wrap it forward. Cover up all that flash on the front. Make a nice orange point or head. Or it's not really the head because this is supposed to look like a minnow, but it's kind of, maybe it looks like what it's supposed to be eating or something. Just making several turns. Some of these, when you see them in the store, they don't have much more than that, or if they even have that much. So just a few turns to make a nice shaped head. And then I like to put a whip finish. Well, not the whip finish yet. This is a half hitch, 1/2 hitch to hold us in place in case we break off so it doesn't come untied. And then I'm going to use my whip finisher. If you've never used a whip finisher, you put the hook of the whip finisher near on the thread in the front. You wrap this part around the back. So you're making a figure 4. And so you got the loose thread that holds against the knot that you're tying. And then you just flip this around. And it whips around itself. You make a few turns just to make a clean whip. You pop it off the back. You're still holding the hook part. You just drag it this side through and it pulls it up tight. When you get there, you slip the hook out. Tighten it up. And then you cut it off. Now, whenever I first started fly tying, I watched a video with Dave Camus where he shows how he ties off his flies. And I used that for many years before I learned how to do a whip finish. And I still use it from time to time, actually a lot of the time. The problem is that when you do that, every time you make a fly, you cut off about 5 to 6 inches of thread that you don't use. So this saves from losing any thread. I'm going to take my nail polish now, and I'm just going to put a little bit on that tie on the head. This will smooth it over. It'll keep it from coming untied. And it makes that orange pop a little bit more, in my opinion. Now, I'll take my marker. I'm going to go up a little bit and make this look more like a minnow. This is the worser of the two markers. This is the better, I think. Got a better dot. That's okay. And I'm going to flip this over. Do the same thing. Look, a little bump going on the bottom too. I didn't see. There. Okay. Now, if you're one of those people that has some of that cool 2-part epoxy or UV epoxy, or you have some real shimmery eyes or some other way to make eyes, then that's cool. You can do that too. I don't have that stuff, so I'll make this. So that's pretty much it. It's just a couple of cleanup things here that I see. I got a thread sticking out here that's pretty short. A couple of them actually. Bring those short threads up and cut them off. Not threads, flash. Okay. And then also want to make this a different length, so I'm going to I just just want to make them the same length instead of pointy like that. So pull it back about there and just cut it off square. There we go. And there is our either minnow fly or sabiki fly. So hopefully that helps you out. A quick tie. If I had the materials pre-cut and set out and I wasn't talking the whole time, like I do through my videos, I could tie probably, I'd say probably about 7 to 10 of these in a half hour. It's pretty quick. They're such a small fly and can yield good results if you work them the right way, and you might catch some free bait instead of having to go to the bait shop and buy some. Depends on what's around you. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that fly, and hope you try it out. This material that we got from the clothing company online, not all their products come in this material. It comes in usually a more opaque, kind of grayish clear bag. Only certain items came this way. In fact, I think this was the only bag that we got that was like this. However, you can go to the fly shop and look in their fly tying materials and find this kind of material there also. It won't be a sheet this big, most likely. It might be half of this, or 2/3 of it or something. But it also, you might find some that already have, that also have already the pattern for the scales. So you may not have to make that, but that's an easy enough step, and that whole sheet was free, and I've already made 5 or 6 out of just a portion of a strip like this. So I could probably make, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could probably get 7 of these flies out of this one strip. And I've got, I don't know, 30 times that strip. So what, nearly 300 of those flies out of that one piece of material. So anyway, give it a try. It's pretty easy. This thread, by the way, is not sewing thread. This is specifically for fly tying. So you would get this at a fly tying shop. You could get away with tying these type of things with other thread, I think, especially if you tied it and then used the clear polish at the end to finish it. It wouldn't be so bad, but that tends to be real lumpy when you tie things off. So anyway, but it's worth a shot if you want to try it. So give it a whirl and let me know in the comments how you did if you used it. I will try these out tomorrow, most likely, and I will, if I remember, I'll go into the comments and let you know how they came out. So good luck, have fun.